Moderator. I think you are muted.
So yes, Dr. Zia, it's a really, really exciting session, and we are all looking forward to it. We have an excellent panel also to support this talk. So we just let me share with you our program for the day. We will have Sanjeev now coming on in a minute, and after that there will be questions and answers session. So please do share your questions. I will ensure that we cover it once Sanjeev has completed his talk. Our talk is going to be for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we will move on to take the question answer. There's also going to be a feedback. So I'll share the QR code, and you're requested to then provide your feedback also at that point in time. So Sanjeev, over to you. Welcome. I'm looking forward to hear you.
Yeah, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, or whatever greetings for the day for whichever part of the world you're from. So it's really a privilege to talk at this forum, and the topic given to me is, I would say, interesting and very relevant in today's day and age, right? Because in today's day and age, a lot of people say that data is the new money, right? It's money, it's not the money. Okay, so putting that into context, where data is the new money, what should we do? Right? Though this is an online, which I'm very well aware. I mean, those who want to speak from the attendees, I have no problem. If you can unmute, you can just speak, or raise your hand or type. Right? So when we talk about data, what are we talking about? Right? In a very simplistic way, if I can say, data, it's the new world today. And when we talk about data privacy and we talk about being operationally ready, right, we are talking about two aspects of it. The first aspect is CUDS, right, which is basically collection, use, dispose, and storage. Okay? So CUDS, if there is nothing you gather from me today, after about 20 minutes, just remember this one acronym. How you collect, use, dispose, and store the personal data or the personal identifiable information. The second acronym that we talk about is APSR. How do you assess? How do you protect? How do you respond? And last but not least, how do you sustain compliance? Okay, a lot of people talk about compliance. I think it's very easy. But if you read the topic of today, how to be operationally compliant, I think the key word here is operational. Compliance anybody can be, because they just think of it as ticking the box. So I just give you a very simple example. Before Hussein Bhai called me this morning, I was reviewing an audit report. Okay, and this has got nothing to do with data protection, but it's got to do with anti-money laundering, which my good friend Mr. Hussein Bhai and anyone else on the panel who is formerly from the bank, they will know. Right? So one of the requirements in any country is that you need to get your people to go on a refresher training, right, for anti-money laundering, right, and know the KYC and CDD, right, know your customer due diligence. So this client, they engage a third-party service provider which is approved by the regulators or recommended, I would say. They send me a course synopsis and it's fundamentals of AML, fundamentals of KYC CDD, understanding the framework of Financial Action Task Force, and how to report a suspicious transaction activity. And the compliance head tells me they are all compliant. I said, how can it be all compliant? The compliance head tells me that at the end of the webinar, they have a quiz. They need to get 70%, but they can fail it 4 times and then the 4th time they get 70%. I mean, to me, anybody can pass an exam after the 2nd time. Okay, by my measure of intelligence. So I wrote back to her. I said, how can you have the same training for the CEO of the bank and the front line? It doesn't add up to me. The board, the management, the front line, the midline, all are different buckets. The training has to be curated towards that, right? So to me, that's what I mean by operationally compliance. It's not just complying by ticking the box. Okay? Can we go to the next slide, please? So when we say how to be operationally compliant to data protection regulation, right? First, we need to understand what is data protection first. Forget about the regulations, right? That's why I told you CUDS, APSR, right? And we need to know what is the gold standard, right? Though in Pakistan, we don't have data protection laws per se, but there are other laws, right? In Singapore, we do have. In Sri Lanka, I think they have just implemented. In the GCC, I think it's across the region, right? So GDPR is the gold standard. It is the ultimate test. And the penalties are huge, right? And the beautiful thing about GDPR, ladies and gentlemen, is there is this thing called the right to be forgotten. And in GDPR, the government is not supreme. You can take action against the government. But in most ASEAN countries, the government is supreme. They can collect all sorts of data about you. So in my country, where I come from in Singapore, the right to be forgotten does not apply. GDPR or any data protection does not apply to government. They have got another set of regulations, right? And again, in GDPR, you got the human rights element. That is the data subject. The individual has got as much right as what you think they should have. Okay? So very important first to understand the regulation. Okay? And does that apply to you or not? Next slide, please. Then you got the California Privacy Act, which is mainly to do with consumer protection in the USDA for California residents. Okay? It's something that you guys need to know, right? If you're talking about playing the international space. And if you see the second line in this slide, it says, as well as requirement for businesses to provide a clear privacy policy. So what do we mean by clear? Clear doesn't mean the Queen's English, or I would say the late Queen and the present King. It means keep it simple and sweet. It has to be plain vanilla. Do not give a privacy policy that I need to take the Oxford Dictionary to understand. That does not work in the real world now. Okay? So be mindful of that. Next slide, please. So this is the Singapore, what they talk about, right? There are 11 obligations in Singapore, right? And predominantly it all talks about collection, use, dispose, and storage. Whether it's GDPR, California, or Singapore, all talk the same thing, just a different way of putting it. And some countries, they specify sensitive data, and some don't. Next slide, please. So when we talk about data protection, okay, in GDPR, I think there are well over 90 over principles, and nobody can remember. I don't have any one of you in the audience can remember. Very good, but I cannot. Okay? Simply said, it's all about lawfulness, fairness, transparency. You only collect what you need to collect to execute the task at hand. Do not collect something just because you want to collect it and for the fun of it. Okay? You got to be fair in your collection. You can't say, if you don't give me this, I won't give you this. Okay? And you got to be transparent. Very important. Okay? So recently I did a audit for a European multinational. They are in the fast moving consumer sector. And it baffled me, ladies and gentlemen. They were trying to collect data of children under the age of 7 years old for marketing purposes for the future. They wanted to know the date of birth, the name, and the photo ID, and the email address and handphone number. Can you tell me, ladies and gentlemen, which 7-year-old has an email address and handphone number? They hardly even know how to go to the washroom, but they wanted this data. Why? Because when they turn 12, they wanted to entice them with certain promotion and get them to join their loyalty program. But they were not being transparent about it. They did not tell people the end game. They just say, we want this data, right? So that during their birthday, we can give them a birthday present. I would love that too, no? If somebody asked me to give my date of birth for a birthday present, I would like it. My birthday, by the way, is coming on December 6th. So I'm giving the hint to my good friend, Mr. Hussein Bhai and Prakash Bhai, the hint already. Right? So it's very important. You got to be fair, you got to be lawful, and you got to be transparent about it. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Next 2 points, data minimization and accuracy. Remember, I said only collect what you need for the intended purpose. Don't collect more. We love to collect. I don't know about you, but I don't throw away things. The only time that I do spring cleaning is during Eid, Diwali, Christmas, Chinese New Year. That's it. The whole year round, I collect. Organizations, they love to collect. Unless there is a legal or business reason, do not keep it. Do not collect. And you got to ensure accuracy. This is very important under GDPR because the data subject has the right to access your data and ask you what data you have of them. And whether the data is complete and accurate or not. And the European companies must be able to respond to them in a given time frame. So you imagine if you are a European company, the amount of work you got to do. Okay? It's very different from Asian data protection laws, ladies and gentlemen, where we are a complaint-based regime. That means to say, if no one complains, nobody cares. The day people complain, you are dead. Europe is different. Okay? So one of the ingenious ways where my friend came up with, right, who is the president of the Direct Marketing Association of Singapore, he says, tell organization, instead of letting people complain, why don't you tell them, if you give me feedback, I will reward you with a Starbucks voucher. I know in Pakistan, when I visited Hussein Bhai and Prakash Bhai, there were so many coffee places. Unbelievable. Like people were eating and drinking 24/7. They enjoy. So if you as a company put this on your website, say, you give me feedback, I give you a Starbucks, you save the complaint, right? Because that's not a complaint, that's a feedback. Feedback are handled differently from a complaint. And most people, they love coffee or chai. Give them what they want and they'll be happy. So I thought it was a very ingenious way of, I like it. We live to eat and drink, yes. Okay, so that's how we balance it, okay? Next slide, please. Storage limitation and integrity. This I spoken earlier, right? Only keep if there is a valid business and legal reason. And then you got your IT triad, confidentiality, integrity, accessibility, right? Don't just people give access for the sake I need to give, I like to have. Okay? Bear that in mind. Next slide, please. So this I talked to you about right to access and rectification, right to erasure and data portability, which is a very big thing in Europe. The right to be forgotten. I think, as far as I know, it's the only data protection regulation in the world that gives you that option. Okay? Data portability is a very, very big thing. Right? Recently, I was in Pakistan, I think earlier this month, together with Prakash Bhai and Hussein Bhai, we talked about data portability. Today, when you ask people, where is the data? They point to the sky, cloud. Then you tell them, where is the cloud? It's the cloud. They look at you, and you look at them, and you start counting the cloud. They don't even know where is the data residency of their data, which is very, 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 very important. You got to know where your data is residing, because if there is a breach, it's a game, set, and match. It's like your Pakistan fast bowler clean bowling you out. You don't even know where the ball came from. And half of the organizations, ladies and gentlemen, they have absolutely no idea where their data is. They just say cloud. After cloud, the answer is IT. Yesterday, I had a meeting with a client. Yeah, our data is on the cloud. IT knows. IT does everything. I said, who is your IT? Outsourced service provider. Who is the provider? Oh, some company in China. We don't know the name, but they were cheap. So we took. Cheap doesn't mean good. Huh? Cheap means run at your own risk. Okay? Next slide, please. While we wait for the next slide to come. Okay. So the right to object and restrict processing. Again, this is very prevalent in Europe and the West. Where you got to be very clear. We took the data for this purpose and only use it for this purpose and nothing more. Okay? You cannot anyhow use the data. Okay, and people have the right to object. In most countries, they got this thing called do not call. That means if I don't want to be spam, anti-spam, there is regulations now for that. Okay. Next, please. So again, I'm not going to go through all this. You all can read it. It talks about the responsibilities of data controllers and processors. Very important for you all to know what is the duty of each. What I want to stress more is on the second bullet point, data protection by design and by default. Implement data protection measures from the outset. The problem is that we wait for the problem to come and then we wake up. Too late. It's game over. Right? You got to make it default practice and automatic. Just like in the morning when you all wake up, right? I think most of us, we wake up from the bed, right? And what is the first thing that we do? Please be honest with yourselves and don't tell me that you say a prayer to God. Don't tell me that you look at your spouse. What you do is you take this. What is this? It's the handphone. You check who has messaged you the previous night, right? So for those people who can't sleep like me, they will message people at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But I think those people are awake as well. Okay, so you see, it's by default. I'm automatically, my mind is trained, wake up, take my phone. Then I will do other things that I need to do. Okay, and a lot of people don't understand the importance of putting a data protection officer. They just put the secretary or they put the clerical person, hoping that this person knows what they're doing. That's not operationally compliant. You're only doing it to fulfill the compliance, i.e. tick the box. So come back to my favorite point is basically form over substance. Right? We need to know what is the underlying intent behind everything. Next slide, please. Okay, so this talks about the data processor obligations, quite straightforward. Next, please. Audits. Okay, this I want to spend a bit of time, right? Steps to ensure compliance. Audit is very important. Now, again, there are two schools of thought here. Do you make an announcement when you go for audit or do you go unannounced? To me, just like in the bank, when you do a cash count, you don't go and tell people you're going to count the cash. Then everything will reconcile. I think Hussein Bhai can share afterwards. His vast experience in banking is second to none. You go tell people everything will be hunky-dory. All compliance will be made. To me, that's not the purpose of the audit. Again, the purpose of the audit is not to catch people, but is plan, do, check, act. Continuous improvement. To me, audits should be unannounced, especially privacy audits, because then you really know, do they do what they say they're going to do, or do they do that because when Prakash Bhai comes, or Hussein Bhai comes, or Dr. Zia comes, or Sanjeev comes, oh yeah, make sure everything is in order. Yeah, better tidy up before I get audit point. And then when you get an audit point, I think for the auditee is accept there is a gap, improve on it. But people don't like, they will challenge till the cows come home, especially in the regulated side. Okay? So that's on audits. Next slide, please. Okay? Again, here, I don't know what to say, but this is very important, having policies, training, and awareness. Education is your key to reducing the risk of a breach. Because when people know, then they will behave. They got to be constantly reminded. For those of you who are parents on this call, I am very sure you will be telling your kids every day, Beta, Beti, please study, so you have a better life. You constantly remind them. Because remember, out of sight, out of mind. You do not talk, people will do what they want. And training has to be competency driven, what I shared with you earlier on, has to be targeted. Not taking this jacket, giving it to the people in this call and say everybody fit into this one jacket. It doesn't work that way. And then don't put a passing score saying 70%, but you can do unlimited times the same by. Who can't pass an exam after the second time? I will already know the questions and I will know the answers. And the best part is when they do this quiz, they're allowed to use this. What is this? Handphone. And then what they do? They call Dr. AI, Artificial Intelligence, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. Then what is the purpose? I get 100% on the score. Am I understanding the intent behind that objective that the regulator set of training and awareness, or am I just ticking the box as one of the things the regulator in Pakistan, I believe it's called the State Bank, right, of Pakistan, they would say, okay, now tick this box, they put a tick. Then don't do it. Data protection policy, shouldn't it be reviewed on an annual basis? Or when there's a significant change in your business process, vis-a-vis activity within the process? So I give you an example. Again, this morning when I was reviewing the audit report, they had a compliance manual that was dated 2022. They are in the regulated industry of fund management. They tell me they reviewed the board. That's the management response. I said, where is the evidence? They said, we talk to each other. We are very nimble, we are very agile, we are very, all the beautiful terms they come up with. I said, where is the evidence? No, but we talked about it in our board meeting. Where is the board minutes? Oh, that's top secret. Top secret? I'm the auditor. I'm supposed to verify and validate before I give my opinion on your process. Right? So in short, nothing was done. But they want to defend. Between 2022 and 2024, there have been significant changes in the world, right? Shouldn't we consider all that? Where applicable to us? We should. Next slide, please. Here you can see the consequences of non-compliance. It is scary, especially for GDPR. And all countries are trying to emulate the first one. I think paying of fines is not a problem because they got the money. The problem is the second part, reputational damage. It takes a decade to build your name. It takes less than 10 seconds to tarnish it. Okay? Very, very important. Next slide, please. You can go to the next, please. So, whilst you're waiting for the next slide, I just want to share, which I have not.
I don't know something. It's stop. Let me. Yeah. Okay.
No problem. That's why I told you technology and me, they never go hand in hand. So can we just go back, Prakash? Yeah, thank you. So you can see, the challenges is keeping up with the regulatory changes and the globalization that is happening. Okay, it's very important if you are sitting at the desk of a compliance, you got to know what is happening. And how do you then demonstrate that you're on top of it? Now, again, I share an example of an audit I did this morning. We got the central bank that gives out regulation. The compliance says everything has been updated. I asked the compliance person, can you tell me what is the process? The regulator might send 100 regulations, am I correct? But not everything will be applicable to us, am I right? We need to know what is applicable to us and then implement what needs to be done. What is not relevant to us, put it aside, am I right? The compliance person tells me, we do everything. But evidence, nothing. So I'm supposed to write an audit report based on representation of the management, which I find it quite funny. Next slide, please. I think you have to go back, Prakash, because I think it starts with before this. Before. Yeah, so these are the common, common compliance challenges. So if you go next, Prakash, thank you. Yeah, regulatory change, I talked about it. Okay, next. Okay, so this is very important. Data mapping and data minimization. You got to know in your organization what is the data flow from cradle to grave. Remember, you were born in a cradle. I mean, you came out of the hospital, you went to a cradle, and then you'll go to the grave eventually, right? You need to know how the data flows within your organization, i.e., where do you collect, where do you use, where you dispose, and where you store, right? So there is a whole mapping of it. And every business would have processes and activities, am I right? All the processes, you may have sub-activity inside there, right? Each activity you need to know where are the touch points and map it out and minimize the data collection. Only collect what is required. Next slide, please. Employee training, we already talked about it, so I'm not going to spend time. You all can read it. Next, please. Okay, technological challenges. Again, today we are in a world that is borderless. We are in a world that has never seen change at the speed at which it's happening. We need to embrace the technology, but not be the slave to the technology. We need to understand the security elements when we talk about using technology. We must know the end game and then work towards achieving the triage of IP/CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and accessibility. Next slide, please. Okay. allocate the appropriate resources in terms of budgets and teams. Okay? Because people are your weakest link in anything. Don't just focus on the technology and the process. Focus on the people. The other two will fall in place in a matter of time. Next slide. Risk management is your APSR. How you assess, how you respond, how you protect, how you respond, how you sustain. In relation to collection, use, dispose, and storage. Okay? Extremely important. Next, please. Documentation is what I talked about in my examples, right? It's not I say, you say. Where is the document to prove what you said? No documentation means nothing is done. You can tell me all the stories you want. I'll say thank you very much for the storytelling. Because remember, audit is about what? Validation and verification. Audit is not about storytelling. Storytelling, I will go back to my teacher and ask her to tell me. Next slide, please. Okay, this one I cannot stress anymore. Third party. Today, a lot of things are being outsourced. And I think most central banks are having outsourcing guidelines or principles, including technology risk management, because it's a huge thing, especially in the banking sector or regulated industry. Okay? If you are not careful, you'll be dead. Remember, you cannot outsource accountability. You can only outsource responsibility. Ultimately, the buck stops at you. So for those of you who know our moderator, he was formerly in the bank, he was the CISO, the buck stops at him. I don't care what his staff does. He cannot go and tell the board that he doesn't know. Right? The buck stops at the top. Okay? Next, please. Okay? So compliance with data protection regulation is crucial for several reasons, particularly in relation to data security and protection. So it's not about just ticking the box, ladies and gentlemen. It's about understanding the intent behind. Next, please. So it talks about protecting your sensitive information. I have not spoken much about prevention of data breaches, but now I'll talk about it. This is the single most nightmare for most companies, because when there is a breach, they are like headless chickens walking around. They don't know what happened. Just like when there is a cyber attack, they are clueless. So when I mean operationally ready means do not tell people when you do a simulation exercise. See whether people are really ready to jump into action. Just like when you had the Microsoft CrowdStrike, nobody was prepared. They were clueless. Just like when COVID came, they were clueless. Right? Always encrypt and have proper access controls. Please do not send emails with the password below it. And please do not put the password at 1234 or your date of birth. Password should be always sent in a different mode of communication, not in the same mode where you send the original content. Okay? Next slide, please. understand the legal implications and the financial, because this is huge, especially for GDPR. As you can see from here, it's 4% of the annual global turnover or 20 million, whichever is higher, not lower. So ladies and gentlemen, it's not lower, it's higher. Okay? And unless your company has got deep pockets, you would have to close shop. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay. Prakash, are you there? So here you can see when we talk about legal implications, you want to avoid that again. This is not a big problem in Asia, but in Europe and US it's a very big thing. When you don't do things right, you will get sued. And you will get sued till the cows come home. Okay, so be very, very mindful of it. Okay. Next slide, please.
So Prakash has had a disconnection. You mentioned about technology issues. He's just joining again.
No problem. That's why I told you, with me, technology and me is like.
Right. So while we are just waiting, I'll take this opportunity to ask you a quick question. But also, I think something very, very important that you mentioned. Anything that is not documented in audit, we consider it's not done, because there's no way, we are going to take management's representation. Those really, really sound like fairy tales. So
So
you are
I'm
absolutely
sorry,
right.
actually, I was disconnected for a while. So please,
No problem, Prakash bhai. So, Hussain bhai, what you said is correct. It's fairy tales, right? So, before this webinar, I was just typing my responses to that person, right? And because now I'm on the webinar, later I'll read her responses, but she is challenging me on it. I mean, to me, you can say what you want, unless you can demonstrate to me, right? So again, one of the requirements is whether it's anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing, or data protection. The board has to have an oversight. Am I correct? They need to be able to identify, assess, and mitigate the risk. Am I right? Identify, assess, and mitigate. I asked a very simple question. How have you, as a company and as a board, demonstrated this? The
Very true.
answer to me, we are nimble, we are agile, we are in the what? VUCA world. We do everything by the fly.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Where is the evidence? Don't have. I said, then it's not done. Simple as ABCD.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the stance we have to take. All right. Another question that I had, and regarding your talk, what should a company do where the country's specific requirement is different from the international standards, industry, or best practice, or where there is nothing mentioned about?
Okay, so it's a great talking point that can be a webinar by itself. But
Absolutely.
The answer, based on my experience and talking to various industry people, you always follow the gold standard. You take the highest level of compliance. You do not take the lowest level of compliance. Most companies, they will say, I will take the lowest level of compliance, I comply. For example, I think in India and Pakistan, there are laws but not directly related to data protection, right? There may be InfoSec or some other way, right? They will have something. Now, do you then say you are going to only take that as a baseline, or are you going to say otherwise? Because there could be people who are born in Pakistan, but they have got US passport or British passport or European passport. Again, your challenges are different, right? So to me, what I have learned through the years is always take the highest. If you cannot take the highest, take the middle part, but do not take the
True.
lowest.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely.
So Prakash bhai, are you back? Then we can go to the next.
No, I'm here actually.
The next slide, please.
Sometimes it's freezes. I don't know. Let me try. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
Got
coming.
it.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's come up.
So, yeah, you just have to go back.
Go back.
Yeah. Okay. So here it talks about enhancing business operations, right? Again, before that, back, I think we missed a couple.
No, we discussed this one now. Second is this one.
What is before this?
So, Sanjeev, by just reminding, we have 9 o'clock as our close, another 5 minutes. I mean, another
Okay.
5 minutes.
Okay, so I think in the interest of the time, I think the most important thing is to understand your business and then map out what you have, right? So in my language, it's the 5W and the 1H. Okay, very simple. So if you did not get anything from me today, please remember the CUDS. There is collect, use, dispose, and store. Assess, protect, respond, and sustain. The last one, 5W and 1H. In everything in life, you must know the where, the what, the who, the why, the when, and the how. So you got to know this when you talk about data protection, right? It's the very basic. And the last thing I want to say before we take questions is, in life, everything boils down to PPT. And again, please don't tell me the answer to PPT is PowerPoint. The answer to PPT is people, process, and technology. And the biggest problem is the people. So take care of the people, the second two will fall in place. So that's all I want to say. So I think, yeah, the rest they can read, Prakash bhai, that's no problem. So we can take the questions if there are any. I think I saw one just now, but for a split second. Hussain bhai, I think you're muted.
So yes, thank you. So I'll help you with that. So thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Lots of questions that I have personally, but here we have from Mohammed Jamil. What common loopholes in data compliance and privacy we see and what we should be addressing?
So the question is, what common loopholes?
Yes, what are the common loopholes in data compliance and privacy?
It's a very interesting question and not easy to answer. Okay. If I look at compliance to data privacy, the common loopholes that I see is that people love to keep data. They don't have a proper retention and destruction policy, right? And that is one of the common problems I find. Secondly, people don't know how to differentiate between what is personal data, what is confidential data, what is personal identifiable information. You got to know first that as a baseline before you can even take the next step, right? So I had one example to share. There was a client yesterday I talked to, the COO resigned or asked to resign. The COO of that institution of higher learning told the staff, I want my personal file on my last day. The staff, evidently because of the rank of this person, gave the file to him or her and did not even take any acknowledgement, anything from the person. I asked the person, you gave the file. Why did you give? Or the person asked. I said, did you even know the purpose, the intent? And did you get an acknowledgement? Because based on the statute of limitation, the institution should keep the records for 7 years in case there's a legal or any other dispute. Now the file totally went to this guy. The institution has nothing. And yesterday they got a legal letter. I said, congratulations, you hit the jackpot. So the common loopholes are not understanding your data, not understanding what you should keep and what you should not keep, and not knowing how to address the situation. To me, that are the common problems.
Very, very true. And, you know, organizations don't protect it adequately. Like, you know, you see USB is ports are left open, so data can be easily taken away. Lots of challenges in that way. And the discipline that you mentioned, they don't have the discipline in knowing what data they have and how to keep it and things like that.
Yes, so I think.
Thank you very much. I think.
Sorry to interject, you raised a very good point just now. You said USB, right? Left open, data flows. So I have another point, if I can add here, is now I'm doing an audit for a wealth management company. Whilst they have given me access to a shared folder, I can't download, I can't print, I can't do anything. But there's one thing I can do. Anybody wants to type the answer. What do you think I can do? Only Hussein Bhai can't participate because he knows the answer. He is highly intelligent, so cannot. Anybody wants to type from the audience. What do you think I can do? I can't print, I can't copy my friend on the USB. In the interest of time, I'll tell you. Camera, take photo. Because I'm sitting in my office in Singapore, the client's data is in the cloud. I can access it through my machine, this laptop. The client did not ask, I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, the client did not ask, this laptop belongs to who? This is my personal laptop, not the laptop of my service provider that engage my services. And I'm talking about personal data here, high net worth individuals, people who are very, very rich. I basically know their Janam Kundli. I just need to take my camera, tick, I have all the data with me. So whilst Hussein Bhai said correct USBs, but if I were the client, I would say, boys, you want to do the audit? You come to my office, my laptop, your handphone, deposit outside. Whatever paper you write, we need to see. Because you are talking about highly sensitive data here, including medical records.
Very true. It's the understanding and the intent. You know, if it's just a tick box exercise, it's only going to be that much. And you know, lowest minimal compliance. So great. Thank you very much, Sanjeev. Excellent talk. Really enjoyed it. We'll go for the closing remarks, and after that we'll have the feedback. So over to you, Vijay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hussain. Good day, everyone. And what an insightful session we have just had. So on behalf of all of us here, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our speaker, Sanjeev Gathani, for his absolutely engaging presentation. Sanjeev, your deep expertise and your ability to simplify such a critical and complex topic definitely resonated with all of us. You have taken us on this journey to, you covered topics like essentials of data protection regulations, emphasizing the importance, and at least from my perspective, most importantly, helping us see how compliance is not just a legal requirement, but as you said in one of your addresses, it's also a commitment to ethical and responsible practices. The practical takeaways you have shared, be it the principles of accountability, data minimization, or even ensuring transparency, they are definitely incredibly valuable. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say that we are now much more inspired to not just comply with regulations, but to also foster a genuine culture of data privacy and security within our own spaces, be it our workspaces or our own private data. To everyone who joined us today, thank you for your enthusiasm and active participation. Sessions like these remind us that learning and collaboration go hand in hand, especially in areas as dynamic and evolving as data protection. As we wrap up, let's take what we have learned here and apply it thoughtfully to our work. Remember, as Sanjeev said, compliance, it's not just about ticking the boxes, it's about building trust and protecting the rights of those we serve. So thank you once again, Sanjeev, for your time, your insights, and your passion for this field. I'd also like to thank Hussain Hassan Ali for moderating the session and Dr. Zia for the welcome address. And thank you to the Art and Talk team for yet another brilliant edition and for all the hard work behind making the session such a success. And thank you to all our audience who have joined us today. We look forward to your presence in the next edition of the Art and Talk 2. Cheers, and I wish you a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Excellent. Really enjoyed that. Prakash bhai, could you put up the QR code for the feedback? And I'll request all of our panel members to open their cameras so we can have a group photo. Yes, and the next talk, could you please go back to that screen for a second? The next talk that we'll have is from Professor Masahiro Nakaoka, and he will be talking about monitoring blue carbon ecosystems by developing integrated observation systems. Saturday, December 7th, 1 p.m. UTC, Singapore time. So please mark your calendars. It is going to be a very interesting talk. G. Prakash bhai, could you go to the QR code for the feedback? Yes, you're requested to kindly, open your cameras and take this QR code so that you can provide us the feedback. Yes. Right, Prakash bhai, could you take the photos and share with us all of the participating? Thank you to all of these, branches and regional members for arranging these talks. This is just so valuable, so important. And do connect with us on the social media platforms. So on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, you have the QR codes over here. Panelists are all requested to open their cameras, and Prakash bhai, will you be doing us the honors, take the photos?
Yeah. Sanjay ji, are you there?
Sanjeev.
Sanjay Kar, are you there, Sanjay Kar? looks okay. Sham is there. Okay. So yeah,
He's here.
can Sanjay ji and Sham, you can take the picture. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
you.
Right, Prakash bhai?
That is any few last comments?
So thank you very much for everybody for joining us today. It was an excellent talk. And I'm sure those who are responsible for handling the data, they would have learned something today. And I think within Region 10 as well, we do deal with a lot of people, with our members, and we do collect sometime information about them. So maybe there is something for us to also be aware of, the sensitivity of collecting data and storing it properly. So no, I think I learned a few things today. So thank you very much, Sanjeev ji.
Thank you, sir.
Stand by.
Gee, thank you very much, everyone. And signing off for today, remember the next session that we'll have is on December 7th. I hope you've marked your calendars and I look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
And thank you very much, Sanjeev bhai.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Thank you, Sanjay ka.
I'm
Thank you,
stopping the
everybody.
recording. I'm stopping the recording.
Yeah, you
Okay?
please stop the recording. Stop the recording.